Yes, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, and wherever you may be when you come to watch this video of ours. Today's date is the 4th of April 2026, and I'm Christian Kwame Agbotsa, overseer of CSG. CSG is a consensusism study group. We meet again, as usual, on our Saturdays to discuss the unification of Africa. And the topic for today is continental citizenship. We don't have a speaker for today, as far as I know, so we'll just have a general discussion on continental citizenship. Before that, we shall have a geopolitical analysis of the news, which will be presented by our sister Portia. So I believe Sister Portia is ready to start the geopolitical analysis. And the idea is that we want to understand where we are as a continent in terms of Africa's unification. Are we slowly moving towards unification? Are we moving backwards? Are we marking time? That's the whole point of the geopolitical analysis. So let's now invite Sister Portia to share the geopolitical analysis of the news with us, which should take about 15 minutes. Mr. Portia, over to you. Thank you. Oh, before you speak, I'd like to welcome Brother Pigeon, Brother Ifo, Sister Tapua, Mulialia, I'm not familiar with, but yeah, but welcome anyway. Welcome, Brother Philip. Welcome, McClint. I don't know who McClint is, but welcome. And then welcome yourself, Sister Portia. Welcome. Thank you. Please proceed, Sister Portia. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Many greetings, comrades. My name is Portia C. Allen. It's around 6:12 in the evening, Accra, Ghana time on Saturday, 4th April 2026. And this is a virtual session with the Conscientism Study Group. And I am to provide you with a geopolitical analysis for the week of 29th March 2026. My topical focus is 3 points. Firstly is looking into Egypt's economy while the battle between Iran and the United States of America and Israel mainly continues. The second point is to look into a pre-session meeting with civil society, which was called by the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. And the third point is about elections in Africa in 2026, a case point being the African Union nation state of Somalia. And in this analysis, from what I've seen, in a racial capitalist system or systems, we Africa and its diaspora are far from unification and liberation. So I will present the points to show why, and of course, I welcome any feedback. Before I begin, I want to commence with 2 images that are on slide. You see here 2024 military bases in Africa, and this is from Africa Stream, which actually got shut down because its information was arguably so good, allegedly. And I trust their sources, and this was an image of 2020. Now, if you take your cursor or whatever you're on in, trying to see this image, you can pull up and see that you saw France and United States of America over in the West Coast. You can see Russia there. You can also see Israel also has a base. Thank you, Professor Kwame. And you see Germany, and also Turkey is there. There are actually several of them, and you'll hear some background noise in it. It's because I'm reading. There's Japan, just some of them of the usual suspects are United States of America, France, China, Russia, Italy, Japan, and Turkey. So just that alone, I feel supports what I'm saying about in terms of that system, racial capitalist system or systems, Africa's unification and liberation is far removed because what what military presence, and this is to quote the Queen's sister who got kicked out of her position to the UN through the African Union, where would you see any, not that we need to, but where would you see any nation state, any African nation state having military bases in North America or Europe or Australia or Asia, for example? And this screen doesn't show, it doesn't imply that we don't have military bases there. So, for example, Niger, Somalia, and Central African Republic have military bases on the continent. It's just showing you how, when you look at this image, how far we're removed to that unification and liberation that Professor Kwame is questioning and the group is questioning. So then if you go now, Professor, and put up the most recent year, which is 2024, kindly please. Now we know that the Alliance of the Sahel states kicked out France and the United States. And symbolically, this was very good. This was very important symbolically. Yet remember I said last week that the alliance, and I'm very much for what the Alliance of the Sahel states, because they've done something. What they are still using, and then King Brother Coco spoke to, is they're still using the West African CFA, and that West African CFA is tied to the French government. So if you look here again, the source is African Stream. You'll notice I was mentioning some countries: United States of America, France, China, Russia. Excuse me, United States of America, France, China, Italy, Japan, and Japan. Notice how many of them are in Djibouti. And I'll leave you to know why that is so. But it's not because they are promoting the very cliche democracy, good governance, and rule of law and freedom of press. So look at that. Look at how many of those non-African Union member states are in Djibouti. So I just wanted to share that with you before I begin those 3 points that I was talking about. Because to me, not that we are saying it has to be only about military, we African as diaspora. It just really, you can see when people have those points of wanting to move out of that systems I mentioned, how you can see a coup happens allegedly and a new leader comes into. I mean, we saw what they did with Libya, and it's not, it's that's just one country. There are many countries in Africa that's happened to. So if we have these non-African Union member states, and noted the criticism of African Union on the continent from north, west, east, central, and southern Africa, that is concerning. My first point of analysis is that of the negative impact upon Egypt's economy whilst the battle between Iran and the United States of America, as well as Israel, continues. So I want to go now to that point. One moment, please. Okay. I hope you all can still hear me.
Yes, we can, sister.
Aposha, we can hear you. Please
Thank
continue.
you. Thank
Thanks.
you. And that's my cousins in the background. They had a game. One of them had a game today. So they're, children. So very happy. So please pardon the background noise. And I believe I told some of you that I'm at my family, and that's what you hear, the background noise. Okay, so and my source that I'm reading from here, which I found very interesting when I was trying, it supports my argument that Iran arguably losing to United States of America and Israel, it will have serious implications on the African continent. And I say that again, if Iran loses, then it is, in other words, it's not a good thing for the African continent. And just a case of point is this responsible statecraft, and I'm reading here, is saying Egypt's economy at its core is built on rent collection. It levies transit fees for vessels making use of the Suez Canal, monetizes its sunshine and iniquities through tourism, and gets sizable remittance from the workers it exports from the Persian Gulf. And then it says it also attracts hot money from investors who are interested, of course, in investing in that country. But what's particularly of notice here is since this battle has been happening, Egypt's energy security has been a point of concern. So, natural gas is the primary fuel for Egypt's electric grid. And I'm still quoting. And before that said battle, on February 28th, Egypt had two principal sources of important gas. Now, these are my words. I know there's this point that Egypt is not Africa, which we know that is a fallacy. And there's also this fallacy that Egypt has nothing to do with Black people, which is also another fallacy. So again, here, this in just in terms of our ancestry, this is also to be of concern. So its two principal sources of imported gas, and I'm quoting again here. The first was Israel, which delivered roughly 1 billion cubic feet per day to Egypt through a Mediterranean pipeline. Now, just months before that said battle, Egypt and Israel signed a 35 billion contract that is set to run through 2040. Now, the second source of that imported gas was Qatar, where the world's single largest liquefied natural gas complex was struck by Iranian missiles and has been shut down. Subsequent missile strikes badly damaged two of the facility's 14 liquefaction units, taking out 17% of Qatar's production capacity and 3% of the global liquefied natural gas supply. So before the battle, which there are arguments that United States of America should have never went in, but now while the battle is happening, Egypt is experiencing its economy, which is not tied to Africa's best interests, arguably having severe consequences. And that's just Egypt. So I just wanted to ask us to look and see how different countries, if you may, are being affected more than just the gas prices and the petrol is going up, but it shows a window into which nation states are tied to Africa's best interests. All right, I'll go to my second point. Prof, how many minutes I have?
I thought you said you were timing yourself, so I didn't time you. But you've done about
Prof?
10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Prof. All right, the second point, and I forgot to time myself. The second point, okay, before I begin the second point, there was a meeting on Wednesday, 1st April 2026. And in that meeting, it was a UN related meeting. And there are a lot of UN related meetings. And why I bring this up, and we, noted about the criticism of the UN. I still want to bring up this point because it's going to go into my second point. But this meeting, how they called it was the post, and I'm reading here from UN, a UN email. So the post, a UN email that was sent to me. So the post 2030 agenda, they are saying basically the 17 sustainable development goals, they were adopted, but global progress remains far off track, with fewer than 20% of the targets projected to be achieved by 2030. And then they're saying that the United Nations faces significant political, operational, and financial pressures. I don't know if y'all know about it, but every so and now the UN says they don't have money and they need more money from the member states. And now, of recent, last year, they are saying that they were at the point where the UN could shut down, which I would say is a good thing. But the point is, they had this meeting. And so, in this meeting that I was in, it was a virtual meeting. It to me sounds like the same recycled thing. So, they go in, they have a group of panelists who talk, who are the experts, and they talk for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe up to 20 minutes. And then they monitor, where they don't allow civil society to have a Zoom call like this where they can raise their hand and then just be acknowledged and ask the question directly. No, how they do it is they ask the questions to whoever the panel is. I bring this up because there was a meeting this week with the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. It was a pre-session meeting with civil society. And in that pre-session meeting, arranged by the Secretariat of the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, which is to be the largest mechanism at the UN for people of African descent. So that would concern us on this call because some of us are in the diaspora and some of us are on the continent. And they set the meeting up similar. So UN has this similar way, and what it does to where I'm posing a question, what gave me pause is are we supposed to attend these meetings really? Does it even do anything? Because if you know they're going to have the same methodology where they minimize civil society's direct way to speak about an issue, is it even a good thing to go to this meeting? And they
Taposha,
have a,
you
yeah,
have 2 minutes.
thank you. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to give you a pause on that because that meeting that I mentioned, the post 2030 meeting, and this pre-session of the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, these meetings are going on and they cannot be accessed virtually unless they choose to have a Zoom call, which is unlikely. So usually you have to go there. The third point and the last point is just to say that Somalia is having its elections. It's supposed to have its elections this month. The president is pardon me. There is a 2026 calendar of elections, and I would just urge you to look at Somalia as a case study. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Posha, for your dedication to CSG, for agreeing to do the geopolitical analysis for us. We appreciate you very much. So welcome, everyone. A few more people have joined us since. Let me welcome them. Brother Glenroy, Brother General, Brother Mauli, Brother Enrico, Sister Amma, Sister Grace, Sister Shaza, and Brother Philip. Welcome. So today's topic, as you will or will not be aware, is let me share the topic that Brother Pigeon has kindly kindly shared with us. And it's coming up on the screen. So this is the topic, continental citizenship. Yeah. So that's the topic for today. And beyond the Berlin borders, reclaiming our home. So this is the topic for today. We have no official speakers, so the floor is open for full discussion, everyone. So for those of us who have been concerned about the length of presentations, it's good to know that there isn't any today. We have one hand up, our own brother Pigeon. Pigeon, you may proceed, please. Thank you.
Brother Kwame, greetings to all of you. I might not be in a stable internet, but I will wish to present briefly for 10 minutes, if that's admitted.
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, and greetings to all of you, comrades. Mine will be a bit different, but at least questioning some few things in regards to this topic. I actually work on a presentation, but I didn't have time to fully complete it. But my argument is on the basis of citizenship and the limit of when you talk of continental. Does it mean that we'll limit it only to Africans in the continent? Or does it mean we extend it also to our diaspora brothers? So do we talk of the black or continental citizenship in whatever format we want to use? And where is the place for the Africa diaspora? So in my small presentation, as the title been explained, how do we realize our continental citizenship? So my basis start with the Berlin crisis. And whether are we or am I in support of citizenship? To me, I see citizenship as a weapon of alienation. We've learned alienation in our consciousness and how capitalism is a weapon of alienation. So the current definition of citizenship in Africa is not a reflection of our humanity, of our people, but it is a relic of colonial architecture. We know that the modern African states are actually administrative shells that were designed in 1884 Berlin Conference. So citizenship within these states, we can call it in our consciousness, is a metaphysical adjective, which is imposed upon us, the material reality of us as a people, to divide the continent into manageable units for extraction. Our division is probably for extraction, nothing else. There's also an element of alienation of belonging. If I have to call myself a citizen of Kenya, Uganda, and Nigerian, the neo-colonial system then alienates us, the Africans, from the broader body politics. It then make us see our brothers across an invisible line as foreigners. So those who are then Ugandans, if they come to Kenyans, we will call them foreigners. That is alienating our brothers and sisters. But there's also the legacy of citizenship. I'll trace it back to the Kenyan context. There's a system that was called Kipande system. Kipande in Kenya is identification card. This Kipande system, to understand the ID card, we have to look at that ancestor Kipande system. And the citizenship and these documentations of citizenship started during the colonial era, when most of African so-called countries became colonial territory, or what you call colonial administrative organs. In Kenya, for example, the Kipande which was a big tag, was a registration document forced upon African men to monitor their movement, control their labor, and enforce taxes. In fact, in Kenya, there's a famous road called the Kipande Road, close to the city next to the National Museum. Nobody could be allowed to move beyond that territory if you are an African without so-called Kipande, which is the identification. The question is, why then so-called colonial masters put a tag to identify us in our land? And that we put on that tag, so-called an ID card, which is now graduating to some other things you call, as a format that I have to produce it to show a colonial master that I'm a citizen of this country, or they found me in this country. And they also have the same tag they put, or sometimes they don't put it, to also call them and make them belong to my country, just because they carry the same document. So this system was for control. It was not for identity. The Kipande did not prove who a person was. It proved who they belonged to in the colonial labor machine. Now today, the national IDs, so-called Kipande, often functions as a digital Kipande. There are now neo-colonial procedures that prioritize state surveillance over ancestral rights of the inhabitants, we the people of the continent. If the state is neo-colonial, the document it issues is a badge of a subject, not a certificate of a free man. Now, if you look at the ancestral roots, our first argument must then be rooted on our reality, our existence as a people. We are citizens of Africa by the blood of our ancestors. We inherit our entitlement from our ancestors. Therefore, we have a natural passport, either birth upon the soil of Africa, and the descendant from the lineage are the only objective truth that can define us as citizens of Africa or the continent. Now, this ancestral lineage or birth on the soil of Africa do not require any plastic card or whatever you want to call it, digital or government stamp, to be valid. We have inherent rights, just as look at the rivers you have, River Limpopo, look at River Nile, look at any river. Do they not, or do they ask for any permission to flow? Are they citizens? Look at our wild animals. Are they citizens of any country? They need to have a tag. And the funny thing is the wild beast migration between Kenya and Tanzania. And they say, where do the wild beasts belong? Are they citizens of Tanzania or Kenya? The Niles and the lakes and the mountain do not require any permission to be wherever they are. The Africans people do also not require any document to be at home in the land of their ancestors. This so-called paper sovereignty is a shadow. Our ancestral root are the substance of who we are as a people. Now, we must distinguish then between what you call indigenous nationality and the neo-colonial states. Our true nationality is that I'm a Luo, I'm not a Kenyan. You are either a Santi, you are Wolof, you are Zulu, you are either the Ngozi, or you are either the Ewe, you are either the Akan. These are organic, historical, and traditional representation. And I am a Luo. I don't have any document called that I'm a citizen of a Luo nation. No. These are actually a representation of who we are, and they have existed before even the so-called Kenyan became of me. I was a Luo before I became so-called Kenyan. So if you have to unite as a continent, will I unite as a neo-colonial Kenyan, or will I unite on the basis of myself being a Luo? So there's a need for traditional validation. In our indigenous nationality, belonging is affirmed through other traditional practices and rites of passage. One does not apply for membership. Today, a white man will walk anywhere, or rather call him the so-called Caucasians or anybody else. They walk anywhere and then they're given citizenship. Look at the scenarios that have been happening on the return of either to bring the people back. You get that some Caucasians from somewhere, because they got the document, now they are called Ghanaians and citizens of Africa. while some Africans are struggling even to get the same document. And Africans, brothers and sisters, come to the continent here, we share the same meal, we look alike, but they're not citizens. I look at them as foreigners. So one does not apply for membership. One attains through communal recognition and cultural organization as a people. Therefore, to my appeal is that the continental citizenship should be a synthesis of this indigenous nationality. It should take into consideration our shared tradition and not a byproduct of neocolonial legal procedures. If you allow me, Chair, maybe 2 minutes, if you allow me. Chair?
Yeah, you're finished.
Okay, thank you. Now, the key elements, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're finished.
Now, the key elements here is how then do we integrate our traditional identity to be of a recognition in the continental unity. And our traditional identity will extend beyond those who are physically present in the continent, but those who have ancestry in the continent to be part of the citizens of Africa, if need be. Because if we go in this structure and this format, anybody else will call themselves a citizen of this continent we want to build, including some who have oppressed us in the past, some who have contributed to the pain to our ancestors. So I then open up and propose that we need to look at the continental citizenship on the basis of our indigenous nationality rather than on the basis of the neocolonial states. That is my thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, we are discussing, as you can see on the screen, continental citizenship. What is citizenship? Brother Pigeon has shared with us his perspective, and I don't know what you think. Listen to Brother Pigeon. I think we will agree with his main submission, which is that citizenship should be based on the indigenous and organic nations of the African continent. I think that is our position. So what is citizenship? So as far as I can tell, there are 3 aspects of citizenship. They are legal membership, and secondly, and it's not about residence, it's about having some kind of legal entitlement to live in a certain geographical space. Then there is the question of rights, that if you're a citizen, you enjoy certain rights, protections, and privileges, which are not granted to non-citizens. Then you also have responsibilities. And you become a citizen in 2 main ways, by birth and by naturalization. And I think by birth is what Brother Pigeon has drawn our attention to. But continental Africa, that is when we become one nation, would also have, I think, citizenship by naturalization, where others may apply to be citizens of the new Africa. So those are the answer to the question, what is citizenship? So a citizen is someone who has who has legal membership of a geographical space called a country, has rights, and has also responsibilities. And that person is a citizen either by birth or by naturalization. The current situation, as far as citizenship is concerned, I think, I hear what Brother Pigeon is saying, that we should go back to before colonialism and see colonialism as the creation of entities for maximum extraction. But remember, let's remember that the nation of Ghana, which was the first in sub-Saharan Africa to be independent. Remember, there were others that were already independent. I'm referring to countries like Liberia, I think Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, I think to some extent South Africa. Remember, they were independent at the time Ghana became independent in 1957. And before Ghana's independence, we had colonial territories. And you could argue that we were citizens of colonial territories. You could still argue that we are still citizens today of neo-colonial territories, which means that all of us Africans, including myself, that is those of us who hold passports of African countries today, that we are neo-colonial citizens. We're not really citizens of a free and economically independent state. The question that we are addressing today is continental citizenship. And that means that we are not talking now about citizenship of neo-colonial states. We are talking about citizenship at a continental level. Now, you will agree with me that you cannot have continental citizenship unless there's a continental nation, which means that what we are discussing is something that's going to come in the future. It's not present now. And that when Africa is truly united and united, and then its members of its organic nations, then they are automatically citizens by birth. I think we've discussed the rights of the diaspora as well in the past. Let me briefly draw your attention to the position of the AU, the African Union. So the African Union, let me be very brief. The African Union adopted a protocol called the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the specific aspects of the right to a nationality and the eradication of statelessness. Let me say it again. Protocol to the African Charter. So the African Charter did not make certain provisions for citizenship, as I understand it. So that was amended, and it became the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the specific aspects of the right to nationality and the eradication of statelessness. And it has a few provisions that are there. One is ensuring nationality for all, granting nationality at birth, preventing arbitrary deprivation, safeguarding us from statelessness, tackling mass expulsions, and then dual citizenship. Now, the earlier frameworks on nationality were to do with Article 6 of the African Children's Charter, and then there was one on free movement in 2018, and so on. Now, the problem we have, as you would know, is that the protocol on free movement has still not been ratified. That's why Africans, unless you are ISO speed, it's hard to have free movement across the continent. This 2024 protocol I've just mentioned will only come into force once 15 member states have ratified it. And then once it is in force, it will represent a huge step forward in protecting and defining the right to nationality across Africa. Be that as it may, we do not have an African nation as at now, and that is the challenge. Sister Tapoa? Sister Tapoa, so we are still discussing Continental
Yes.
citizenship. Yes, Sister Poa, please join the discussion.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to address this topic on how citizenship can further our objective of the unification of Africa. I'm looking at it from 2 points of view. The ordinary person who has a border that separates them from their fellow nationals across the border has no problem. I live in a border town. People cross the border everywhere, anytime. The past colonial system tried to stop them from crossing, but they wouldn't because their chief is on the other side or the other nationals are on the other side. So what we have is a situation where the ordinary person is perpetually labeled as breaking rules. So the whole concept of citizenship becomes difficult to administer and to let people understand because it is foreign and imposed. They only realize it when they want to use a formal channel, either to buy something or to come across the border with something, or just trying to be formal. So, what we want to do is to reconcile the way the ordinary common person sees the border and citizenship, and the way even the foreign Berlin determined borders and administrators see this thing. Firstly, borders were established for efficient extraction. The countries that we inherited were established for efficient extraction. The question I would ask is, considering the gap that we have between those people who want unification and those people who don't understand unification, is there a possibility of one using the same borders for advancing our cause? In other words, whilst we know that we don't want these borders, that these borders were imposed on us, is it not a step further to attaining our cause if, for example, we help facilitate what's happening right now between Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and in East Africa, and what's happening in Southern Africa between certain countries or West Africa? So, with regards to borders, I am saying it's within our interest to encourage what is happening and move with the people who are trying to make this move towards unification. They might see one thing, we can see it as a step towards unification. But of course, we're not going to abandon our wish that these borders go away. Citizenship comes with ID, identification. If we say we don't want the identification that was put by the colonizers, are we saying we do not need any identification? Because with the modern states that we have, even if we have nation states, they come with certain obligations and responsibilities. What is it that we're going to use to identify the different members and to make ourselves responsible within a certain vicinity? Because I'm thinking the borders are gone. We don't have Zimbabwe anymore. We don't have South Africa anymore. We now have these IDs based on nationality. Is it not increasing the amount of work and stopping us from reaching our goal faster? Because if we went along with the borders as they are, allowing people to move freely across borders and to do business across borders without removing those. We take advantage of them as administrative regions within, with the hope, of course, of building up the nation state so that it's a process. We are maintaining what's there, using it to get towards where we want to go, but at the same time, we are buying time to remap Africa because it's not going to be a one night, 1 year process, naming us and putting in all the nation states. So we can use the borders and we can use the IDs related to the Berlin Conference borders for efficient unification. And then when we are ready, it's like what happens what happened during the struggle. We got our independence, I'm putting it in quotation marks, and then we started renaming things afterwards. So we can get our unification in terms of citizenship and removing the border. So that, for example, the Africans from the sixth region who are now Ghanaian citizens should automatically be recognized as people who can be anywhere else in Africa so that they don't have to have a Ghanaian citizenship, a Zimbabwean citizenship, and have all these numerous citizenships. Your citizenship to Zimbabwe is a citizenship enough for you to be able to move around the continent. I've got something that we need to consider seriously, and this is the fact that we identify ourselves as belonging to the continent by color. We're black, we're African, we look a certain way. Some people who are not African but black, some of them get offended when they're identified as African. And I've been listening to the kind of discussion that has erupted around the Ghana position of reparations. And I was shocked. I joined one meeting where some people
Yeah, Sister,
who are,
Sister
yes,
Tapua, don't bring in the um, ratification of that into the discussion. If you don't mind me requesting so, if we can
okay,
just focus on the citizenship. Others have
yes,
their hands up as well.
yes, okay. Can
So
I,
we
all
can
right, so
round up, yeah.
mhm, mhm. So the reason why I was pointing this out is we need to find a way of those people who want to be identified as Africans outside the continent to be
Mm,
identified as Africans and not to use color per se, because
yeah.
some people do not identify as Africans. In indigenous identities are really important, but we need to be thinking of how these are going to help us in the unification. For example, I'm thinking, I know it's not the best example. I'm thinking of the United Kingdom where I've lived. I'm thinking of America where I know a bit about. The United Kingdom is made up of 4 countries. But when they're facing external factors, they see themselves as the United Kingdom citizens. But within that, Scots feel very strongly that they're Scottish and they don't relate as well with the English. And that in itself strengthens the kingdom. So I'm thinking, whilst we're working towards unification and using the borders that have been established, we need to be working on dealing with our own identities because a lot of us struggle with even understanding who we are. So we cannot wait for that to happen in order for continental citizenships to happen. In
Mm,
conclusion, I'll say, let's take advantage of understanding the processes and the steps that take us towards citizenship by using the structures that we have already without necessarily waiting to dismantle them so that we have continental citizenship. Let's work towards continental citizenship using what's there with the intention of later on restructuring. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But support, the protocols are already in place. They just haven't been ratified. So it's not as if we are recreating anything. So you see,
thank you for that. I had a question. I'm not aware of. You said the 15 that needs. Is it 15
this is
that
the
need to ratify?
this on the
How
screen.
many?
This is the this is it needs 15 to ratify. As I understand it.
How many have signed?
Well, we are 54. So once 15 states have ratified it, then that it comes into force. That is my understanding. But the point I'm making is that we are not asking for us to reinvent anything. We're just saying that I am like you. I am already a citizen of Ghana. What I want is continental citizenship, so I can just move freely across the continent. That is that is. So I'm not a citizen of Kenya or of Zimbabwe because of the nature of the legal nature of the states right now. So thank you for your contribution. I think the points you've raised also goes to what we've been saying for a long time, which is that when we meet on Saturdays like this, we ought to release a communique as to this is our deliberations. This is what we think. We haven't been doing that. We have all these wonderful discussions on Saturdays, and nobody, well, unless you go on our YouTube channel, but we are not, if you like, sharing our deliberations to feed into the ongoing discussion. I think we should do that.
Chair, I would like to,
Yeah.
Chair, I would like to interject here. My icon for raising hand is not available, so I
Okay.
also like to
I'll let you.
contribute to the program. So
Excellent.
when you have the chance, you
Yes.
let me do so.
Thank you. I'll do that. Yeah, so we are hoping to start releasing a weekly newsletter, and hopefully we will then include in the newsletter our discussion. So if anybody here is prepared to help Brother Pigeon with the newsletter, please let us know, because we need to let people know what is going on. Let's now go to Brother Glenroy, please. Thank you.
Will the newsletter be one around just the view of the CSG, or where there are contradictory views, such as we had on Thursday? Will there be room for such intervention or contribution?
Sorry, Brother Glenroy, I was. Can you just repeat your question again, please?
Yeah, you said CSG newsletter and tend to be CSG view or organizational view, but I wonder if it's a separate thing, just to respond to what you just said about the newsletter. That's not why I put my hand up.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Well,
there are people out there with differing views, as we found out on Thursday.
No, fine. One of the ideas behind Saturdays is that when we have a discussion, however controversial, we have different views, that we communicate that. And if it means communicating different views, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But the point is that we have to put it out there that CSG has had this discussion to feed into the ongoing discussion. My concern is that we are not issuing any communiques, and we've been doing this for almost 1 year.
No, I get that.
Okay, thank you.
I get that. I agree with the idea of doing that. More information. The reason I put my hand up was really to, it's an excellent idea, eradication of statelessness in Africa. I read that as among Africans, that there should be no statelessness. And let's be clear, when we talk about the continent, we will find many quarters will be questioning both the name of Africa and its geographic location. You will have heard this about the Suez Canal actually took away some of our territories and all that. But at the end of the day, we have little argument about the current name being something imposed upon us, as is the borders and boundaries of what I call PBC, Post Berlin Conference. And it has to also be acknowledged the five regions of the continent, north, south, east, west, and central, are also foreign imposed. This was a creation of the UN to identify trading region and so on. But the sixth region can be said to be one of African Union creation. So when I look at the citizenship for the continent, I think of it as the citizenship for Africans. And the point about the very statement I take on the part of the UN about no African being stateless is precisely that, in the sense of if you're an African who find yourself outside of the continent, you will not be stateless. Now, this might not be the intention, or most people will not interpret it like that, but I would say that our discussion should seek to make that part of our objective. Because at the end of the day, we've been around this corner so many times about what about Africans outside of the continent? What about Africans who have migrated outside of the continent? What of their children? How do they claim African citizenship, or are they just tied to the Berlin border country of their parents? So a way must be found not only to include those people we consider to be in the diaspora, but also people who migrate, whether on long term or indeed as many people from the Caribbean going to Europe and Canada and so on. Their plan was to be there 5, 10 years, make some money, and go back to the Caribbean. And of course, that didn't happen because people brought their children over and they settled in these nations. And now the question about, are you an African or are you a Caribbean, or what is your diaspora and so on, is something that is occupying people's mind. When I think if the majority of us, and we need to remember, not all Africans off the continent want to be identified as an African. No African, not every African anywhere in the world, not everyone will want to be identified as an African. It's something that we've not overcome. The Chinese person doesn't have a problem about that. I don't hear them arguing that they're not Chinese, maybe people from Taiwan, but that's a different argument. We have not reached the point where African, for the reason Sister Tapora mentioned, that Africans are black, is an identification that says they are African. So people will forever remain Caribbean or Nigerian or South Africans, and whatever. We know what's happening currently in South Africa. So we have a mountain to climb, but I think the more we do it by piecemeal, which is what it sounds like to me, it makes the journey longer. And it reminds me of the 1963 disagreement with the two groups within the OAU structure. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so we have a few hands up, so we're going to go around with the discussion. I'm trying to alternate between male and female voices, something I learned from the GAC, of which Brother Gloria was the lead at the time. So one of the things that I think, I think some of us, not all of us, not those who have spoken, but some of us who have spoken, have gone backwards to even the colonial era, by which I mean that the declaration of the state or nation of Ghana was done by us. It wasn't imposed on us. So, for example, current Ghana is not a colonial imposition. What was a colonial imposition was the Gold Coast. Now, the Gold Coast is a small part of current Ghana. Current Ghana is made up of four parts: the northern, what we call the Northern Territories, the Gold Coast proper, the what we call the Transvolta Togoland, where I come from, and then the Ashanti Protectorate, which was the remnant of the Ashanti Kingdom. These four territories is what came together to become Ghana, and that wasn't imposed on us. It was Ghanaians, led by our Sergeant Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who actually proclaimed that nation. So I say that because some of the comments I'm hearing is that they were imposed on us. They weren't. These new nations were not imposed on us. When we declared independence, we were clear what we were declaring. What Nkrumah, Modibo Keita, Sekou Touré, and Patrice Lumumba and others said is that beyond declaration of independence, we should then move to unification. So, for example, there was a Ghana, Mali, Guinea Union. So I'm saying that the way we are putting it, some of us are putting it as if the current states were imposed on us. The colonial territories were imposed on us, but surely we are responsible for the current state of the continent in terms of borders. So anyway, I stand to be corrected, but this is my reading of the history. Let's hear from Sister Grace, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I put my hand up when Sister Tapua was speaking, as I would agree with what she was saying, but whether it goes the same direction, I don't know. The fact that to use the current stage that we're at, and when I mean stage, I mean currently we've got because in my view, I've always said this, on the ground, the unification has already happened. But the administration and the politicians are the ones kind of slowing us down. But at least, so we're kind of waiting for them when they decide. And then when they decide with whatever they decide with the African Union. But we know that they have agreed on 5 regions, which means at this point, we are now in 5 regions. 6th with the one in the diaspora, which is not formalized, but it's somewhere there. So we've got these 5 regions on the continent that have been agreed, and I would say active. Active in the sense that if we look at ECOWAS, I think they have a passport, which means everybody in that region can have that passport to then freely move, do whatever within that region. Now we've got EES, what is it? Anyway, the Sahel, which has broken off the ECOWAS and formed their own, the confederation, working towards a federation. So these other ones are not federations, or we can still say they are confederations, but ECOWAS is an example of the union that they're going to form a federation and then wait for the other 5 to then become one. So if these leaders have agreed on these 5 regions, despite the inward countries that I would agree with Brother Kwame that the current position that we're in, we have created. Nyasaland and Nyasa people were all over in the southern region. But Mike Kamuzu then says, oh no, by the way, we're going to be different and we're going to call ourselves Malawians or Chichewa, to speak Chichewa and not to speak Nyasa, what everybody else is speaking. So it's our own doing some of these things. We were a federation in the southern region. Kamuzu decided to go that way. Whether it was forced on them or what, but in the end, they were fighting together. But when it came to independence, they then split. So splitting ourselves even further. But what I'm saying is, as of now, at this stage, we have the 5 regions. If all the 5 regions had 5 passports, we had 5 passports. I know the East has got a passport, from what I'm understanding. EAS has got its own passport. So we've got 3 that have got passports. There is 3 remaining. Is it 3? Yeah, remaining. If SADC had a passport, we all had SADC passports, we would forget about the Malawi passport, because I've now got this one. That becomes my ID as well as my passport and my citizenship in that particular region. Once these ones have been solidified, I know the Eastern region kind of works together in terms of rails and all this, and Museveni is pushing for one military and one whatever. Once everybody does that, just like the EAS is doing, one this, one that, one this, one that, we end up with 5, which will be easier to then move towards one Africa. For example, President Mahama is now walking around saying, in fact, he's using this word, freedom of movement, which is in there. I think it's in the charter. In fact, I was going to look it up to say what section refers to the freedom of movement of Africans.
Yeah.
If they all start talking the way Mahama is talking, freedom of movement, Mahama's moved on. He's not even talking about ECOWAS. He doesn't even mention it. He's busy going to the Southern Africa to try and start reinforcing this freedom of movement. He mentioned it again, was it today or yesterday? I'm trying to agree with other nations. I've already agreed with Zimbabwe. He's agreed with Zambia for freedom of movement. So that encouragement must be pushed so that the freedom of movement is now not just for this region and that region and this region, but the regions together, for the regions together. So that would be my approach. Instead of dismantling the whole thing and starting a new, completely different approach. Because once we've become one from regions to one, with one whatever, and then we have all these regions, and then the little countries, which will be states. People keep saying the United States of Africa, which will be states, as in United States of America, have that kind of stuff. We had that when the white people were there. When we had the federation, there was one ever, the rest of them were governors or prime ministers, and then they moved on to presidents. So that's the way I find it easier to do, because those who will hold us back have agreed. Let's work with them. Then they become regions. Let's all have passports. I don't know why others have the passports, regional passports, and others haven't. Which means AU needs to be firm with these people. Can we have these regional passports? Then move on to the additional one Africa passports. One Africa passports. Obviously, in terms of citizenship, we then have problems with the white who call themselves Africans, who have taken citizenship from one country, let's say South Africa or Zimbabwe, and then they claim they're Africans. I don't know what we're going to do about that, because they will get these passports and become whoever. But whatever the case is, they are still diaspora of where they came from. Because like we've heard, citizenship does not give you lineage. It doesn't give you indigenous. Because if you ask them which part do they come from in South Africa or in Zimbabwe, they can't tell you. It will be I came from England, my ancestors. It's ancestral. They're coming from German. They're coming from wherever. Those of us in the UK, in the America, we are coming from Africa. We are coming from India. We are coming. So the citizenship then is just a confirmation that you're like this. The term black is a problem. We have rejected it in Scotland because for that same reason, because a lot of other races will say they're also black. So when it comes to doing statistics and whatever, the government looks like they are giving resources to black people when it's not us, the black people, it's other black people who are very well organized. They go, they get, as far as Scottish government is concerned, they have given it to black people, not knowing the Africans have been left out. So we prefer using Africans, and that policy has been adopted, that it will be, we are Africans. So I can't remember the issue that Brother Glenroy brought up about citizenship of children of people who have migrated out of Africa, like myself. What happens to our children?
Sorry, Sister Grace. Brother Philip,
Yeah.
you may not want, I think it's a bit private. Your camera is on. Just so you know, please. Thank you. Sister Grace, sorry about that. So if you want to
That's
put
okay.
your camera off. Yeah, Sister Grace, please continue.
Yeah. So in terms of citizenship now, the citizenship, so I'll give an example, Malawian citizenship. First of all, some countries allow dual citizenship, others don't. So those whose countries in the country on the continent does not allow citizenship, they have maintained their citizenship out of choice, because if they take the other citizenship, they denounce the African citizenship wherever they're coming from. So they don't take the British passport or the American passport, whichever, another passport, because your law says if you do that, forget us, right? So some people don't. But those who take, but those who have children, okay, those who have children, whether you had them over there or you had them here, your country has provisions for that. It will have provisions. For example, Malawi will say all the children born out of a Malawian, meaning me, or Malawian citizen, putting it that way, become Malawian citizens, right? But if I am married, this is another trick. I don't think they've changed that yet. And I've seen so many other constitutions saying the same thing. If I am married to somebody from another country, Kenya, Zambia, Britain, or wherever, the children take the father's citizenship until they are 21. At 21, the person can decide which citizenship they want to take. So that's how they've put it. So they are still citizens of where the parents are coming from. And there are few countries, for example, America and Britain, if I can remember, America does it by birth, I think, if they haven't stopped. Ireland used to do by birth. They stopped it because everybody was going to Ireland to have their children to become Irish. People were going to America to have children to become Americans. We've seen the Badnoch case. Her parents came to Britain, had her, she's British. So they'll give birth to these people, take them back to Africa, and then wherever they're going, they're walking around as British people, which is what Badnoch keeps bothering us about. But Britain stopped by birth. So even if you born your child in the UK, they are not British by birth. They are from wherever their parents came from until they make an application, pay for it, get it, go through the process, get it, only to be revoked tomorrow because you've done something wrong or you've overstayed wherever you were. We've heard all these stories coming up today. If you don't use your British passport when traveling, they will ask you questions and they might revoke it. So that's what's happening at the moment. I can't remember what else was mentioned, but that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Grace, for your extended contribution. I have never understood why it's a problem for the British when people obey the law, and then they change the law because people obey the law. Your law says that so and so can only have British citizenship if they are married to a British citizen. And then when you take steps to get married to a British citizen, they say that, well, you did not really marry the person. You married the person for papers and so on. But that's what the law says. So when you obey the law, they hold it against you. When you don't obey the law, they hold it against you. I've never understood why obeying the law is such a problem.
It's only political and for votes. but it can be challenged. So that's okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's hear from brother Mauli. Thank you. If we can make our contribution shorter, so others can also chip in. Brother Mauli, please, the floor is yours. Thank you. Mauli is not ready, so let's go to Sister Portia, please.
Hey, can you hear me okay, everybody?
We can indeed. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I want to start with the topic, and I'm going to stay on topic. And I also
Sorry.
want to just...
Okay. Oh, it just started already. Okay.
All right. I want to start with the topic. I want to try to talk briefly because I've already spoken with the geopolitical analysis. But the first point is when we talk about oneness or prosperity, unification, liberation of Africa, it cannot be with the tool of destruction. So what is the tool of destruction? The tool of destruction is a racial capitalist system or systems. And I keep saying that over and over again. Nothing in those systems will ever be a benefit. That's why I started in geopolitical analysis with that military presence on the continent. So when there are wars happening, when people don't have food, when people are having homelessness, when people cannot even afford just the basic health care, and you have these $1 billion or $1 million buildings on one side, and then right next to them you have people who don't have running water. That's a racial capitalist system or systems. So oneness or prosperity, to the point of what is unification and liberation, we are talking about economic stability, a cultural stability, a psychological stability, a militarily stability, a military stability, a spiritual stability. And that was in Akibulan before that Berlin conference. It doesn't mean everything was perfect, but by and large, what we're talking about here, the whole concept of citizenship, when you think about it, we didn't even have that back then. It wasn't even how dare you tell a Maasai, for example, that they couldn't graze their cow in Tanzania, now Tanzania, and then go back to, for example, Rwanda. It was unheard of. So remember, in that last point of my geopolitical analysis, I'm wrapping up, I said, look at Somali as a case study with the current elections that are happening in this 26 year. Even the election processes, the registering to vote processes, those are all within a racial capitalist system or systems. So that's how can we even expect to go back to the cliche to win? So when we talk about this citizenship that King Brother Pigeon was saying earlier, I feel it's going back, as I always say, to the indigenous way. We're going to have to refute the very systems we are in, because ain't no way they going to have it where, because there's criticism now with the African Continental Free Trade Area. They are saying it is tied heavily to the United States of a government to benefit it. That's why there's already a bill underway in the United States of America that has already been passed that is mentioning the African Free Trade Continental area. I may have mixed up the words. So
Okay.
nothing in these current system or systems is going to ever benefit us. So we got to get out of that thinking, or I would dare say, ask us to move away from that thinking that we somehow are doing something wrong. It's the systems that are destroying us. And this is why the alliance of the Sahel state is so important to look to. I'll stop there. Thank you.
And that's why people got confused when they signed the deal with America. Right. Okay, let's hear from Brother Kandini, please.
I never sided with America. We talk about making sure we're factual. So
No,
I
I
take
didn't.
serious objection. I have never sided with the United States of America government.
No, you haven't. And
Never.
I haven't said you did.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you haven't, sister. You are one of us. We love you. Yeah, let's hear from Brother Kandini, please. Brother Kandini. All right, he's not ready either.
Yes,
Let's go to
can I be heard?
yeah, please. Brothers and sisters, if I call you, please unmute yourself and speak. Yeah, thank you. Yes,
All
Brother
right.
Kandini,
Thank
please
you.
proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity, and also to thank every brother and sister who has made a conscious effort to contribute meaningfully to the topic on the table.
Which is
In fact,
continental citizenship. Thank you.
my session is just going to be about two. Some of the earlier speakers have touched on very salient points, of which we need to take into high consideration. And then the other aspect will be how I look at the whole topic on the table. If you look at the sister who just finished her submission, and Sister Tapua, and there's a brother, all of them talked about sometimes we, for instance, working in the existing systems already, and then with time, like the blocks, keeping the blocks together, and the blocks becoming few so that the division is lowered, and then we put it and all that. And with you, brother, the chair talked about the charter, the UN charter, which is already in existence, but as to it being
No,
implemented
not
for we to see
Kandini, not the UN Charter, the African Union Charter.
AU.
Yes,
Thank
not
you very
not
much for the
UN.
correction. Yeah, yeah, it is there already. We've written all the beautiful things we need there, but as to how we roll it out so that it become physical for we to experience them, we are yet to do that. If you look at, there have been some examples from the West as to how even the United Kingdom citizenship are obtained. First of all, Africa has been damaged in a way by Western colonialism and neo-colonialism. And for that matter, if we as Africans are looking at the issue of our citizenship, definitely, then we must really uh, have a system where we have planners and thinkers who are feeding our citizens who have been nominated to lead the various nations. For instance, the system, as had already been said, can be in place. We can have various names of countries, but what makes the ideas work is systems. For instance, if you are leaving Ghana to Ivory Coast or Burkina Faso, now there are not going to be any stationed military or barriers where you have to do checkpoints once you are within the continent. Now, military and the security system that check movement to be in places, for instance, when it comes into the inter, I'm dealing with the continent. So the inter different from the intra at the continent level. So the intra, we have no borders, we have no military system manning any border, though the names and administrative system exist. Then, if it is the airports that we have, the various air movement, and then the sea, those kind of places where people are coming from outside Africa into our country, there we have our security system to check who is coming. If you enter into our various ports, whether being the harbor or the airport, we look at your document. If you are not an African, then we have a system you have to go through to be able to live in the continent. But once you board and you come into the country and you are African citizen, there's nothing more for you to do than to just freely go. Whilst we already have the various nationalities with the identification, like one speaker earlier said, once you have the identification from a particular country in Africa, you are due to go through. For instance, and then one also touched on the point that we have people who have dual citizenship or they are born into other countries who are Africans, and out of the fact that they were not born in a continent, they become citizens of other countries, and we need to invoke all that. If we need to solve the African problem, then we must have an African nationality, continental nationality, where whoever seeks to be an African has that identity. Either you choose a particular country which is already set up, because when the Western people came into our country, what they did was that they saw we have our chieftaincy institution, our leadership already in place. So all that they needed to do was to capture the head of the institutions. And when they capture every
Brother
law that
Continue. One more minute, please. Thank you.
All right. Every law that they have to make were made done through the chiefs. So can we also do same? Now, if we are reasoning, we do that through our various leaders that we elect to lead our various nations. And then we break the barriers by systems. Systems now here being that if it's military, we are not pushing the military to limit any citizen of Africa within the continent to freely move. That must be practical. It must be seen. We can talk that by papers that, oh, free movement, but you go to the borders and you are being heckled there. How do you then have a free movement? But if you go to the African continent as a border where we have our military ensuring that they take care of all the various entry points within the continent, that outsiders may not easily enter the continent. That is where we are really preventing outside from entering into the country, because whether we become free or not, there must still be laws and for we to manage our system exactly as we want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Kandini. I think the freedom of movement works best when you fly by air, as opposed to when you travel by road. All right, thank you. Let's hear from Brother Mauli, please. Who couldn't?
Thank
Mauli?
you.
Yeah.
Yes, greetings. Sorry.
Greetings.
Yes. So I think that for me, the whole will previous. They say where you fall at, that's where you actually stand from. And so where we were previously before these colonial invaders came in initially, we were dealing by tribe. That was what we were dealing with. We didn't have these colonial borders imposed on us as at that time. And if that is the case, that we say, okay, now we've had these colonial administrative borders, and we need to, it's a matter of reconsolidating all the data we have within at the 54, within the 54 African countries, which is what I think the AU could have easily done with all the various regions the AU have, the 5 regions the AU have, and also make sure that, okay, now we have the 5th state, which is the diaspora, identify them and have a legal structure properly that will be able to integrate them. Because sometimes you have, here in Ghana, there are people selling lands and they sell it for these white people, especially the Mozungu people. And it's not the best. So I'm like, okay, so if my brother, who is a black person, come to Ghana and want to buy land, he have to go through the same regulation as the white man who is also coming to buy land here in Ghana. Is it fair? Are we also like, can we do the same thing over there? So if we are trying to look at Africa without border, and we are going towards that time, I think it's a matter of the data is already there. We disband all these borders, consolidate all the citizenship data or whatever within all the whole thing, and then say, okay, now within this region, these are the regulations they have based on where they find themselves. So we take it from there. And so it's not anything difficult that we can't really do if we stand that we want to do it. It's a matter of, okay, how do we go about it? We come up with the idea, we have the resources and everything. We go about it and we are good to go. Because right currently, as I speak to you, majority of our people have agreed already that, okay, this is the way forward. So how then do we make it practicalize it? And the only thing holding us back is the AU. So I think what you said earlier, that we should actually be issuing a write-up at the end of every Saturday, it makes sense a lot. So that some of this write-up will actually get to those people, and be part of the table, the discussion, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Because these protocols are already in place. The AU heads of states have signed these things. They are already signed. It's just some of them, not all of them. The free movement, 2018 has still needs to be signed. But that's the point. We have to call for it to be signed, don't we? And I think we here should be encouraging them, if you like. All right, let's hear from brother General. Let's see what the Anunnaki think about all these things happening. They are sitting there looking at us and wondering, what are my children doing? What are our people doing? Anunnaki.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Greetings to everyone at large. Yeah, I'll just be brief due to our time constraints. I give thanks even for the presentations, thoughts from our fellow members. They are truly fruitful, and I did take some notes as well. So even what Son of the Lake said there earlier on concerning the issue of genetics being the factor that determines whether you are the descendant of a certain group of people, therefore qualifying you to have the right to live in a certain land and enjoy certain freedoms. So that comes from genetics. So the in the before that's like 2000 years ago, before the fall of Egypt, our members, they need to understand that the central governance system was a Tartarian governance system, which was a governance system by black men, African people, if you want to put it that way. We were the central government of the world. So during that time, we practiced what you call world citizenship. World citizenship is basically the benefits the white people have today, because obviously they stole all those systems and then they reverse engineered them into this capitalism we have. But they still practice the world citizenship system whereby basically as the white man, you can go to any country as you wish. There would be no constraints for you to enter that country. That's what was happening for the black man before the fall of Egypt. The black man could travel anywhere he liked. That's why we have black people all over the world, because basically we colonized the whole planet. So they're still practicing that same system. So now, but the thing is that after the first Pan-African meeting of which was in the 1900s, basically the beginning of 1900s, that's when we started to come with the phrase of we are Africans instead of we are Anunnaki, because now we needed to call ourselves based on a land base so that we can continue the Pan-African to rebuild what was destroyed by the white elites and the Asians. So we started calling ourselves Africans because we wanted to identify ourselves with the land base, where we know to be a land base for us, the blacks, you see, so that we can rebuild. Same with the other people called the Asians. Same the people who call themselves Europeans, because if you can look at Europe and Asia, it's the same continent, but they are calling themselves Europeans and the others are calling themselves Asians. So it's more about identification of the land base based on a current geopolitical scenario, as I just explained, and according to the African timeline. Thank you.
Yeah. So, General, I mean, if, for argument's sake, God created the world and God created his children or her children, then it stands to reason that his children are citizens of the world, isn't it?
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
stands to reason. Right. Thank you very much for your contribution. Some people believe that following the restoration of Anunnaki rule, that we shall reverse some of these things. Thank you very much. Let's now hear from Brother Ifo, please. Brother Ifo.
Revolutionary greetings to you all.
Greetings.
Yes, I was cooking as usual, so but I did hear Sister talk about the concept of a process towards unification, where you have ECOWAS and you have other regional blocks, and how if we support that process, it can lead to eventual continental unification. So I like that idea. I know that sometimes there's a tension for folks who are in the diaspora whose ancestors were kidnapped a few generations ago. And it's a tension that I've noticed between those of us who know like I'm Isoko, and I know that, and some people know that they're Yoruba, some people know that they're Twi, whatever, and so there's sometimes where people want us to forget who our ancestors told us we are in order to unify. And I think that that's a colonial mistake. I don't think we need to forget who our ancestors say we are in order to unify with other people. Our ancestors historically, in many ways, told us that we're all related, we're all family, and we can be. I am strongly Isoko. That doesn't mean that I don't fight for the right of the Yoruba people to be Yoruba, or the Hausa to be Hausa, or the Luo to be Luo. Those are not mutually exclusive things. I think it's the colonial mindset that causes people to think that there's a conflict. In the same way, people have multiple identities. I know in the colonial thing, they tend to do blood quantum, which is fundamentally racist, and we should reject that. I think the reality of this is as the understanding that I have from my ancestors is about 100%, which means if you have ancestry that is Yoruba and you also have Isoko, you are recognized as a Yoruba person 100%. You also recognize an Isoko person 100%. If you also have Fulani ancestry, you're also recognized as Fulani. So the need to segregate things based on people's lineage is a colonial imposition. And our ancestors had very, very brilliant ways to accept members of the community. And your membership didn't even have to do with if you were even bloodline, because in some cases, there might be someone, let's say there was a trader that came to the community from somewhere else, and something happened and they passed away and their child is still in the village. They take care of them in the village, they adopt, and then you become a part of the community. It is not the idea of, oh, because this person, ancestor came from somewhere else and their father or their mother or whatever died in our community, now we reject this child. No, every child in our community is a member of our community. So I think if we start to reclaim the spirit of Ubuntu, if we start to reclaim the teachings from Sankofa, we will not be having these questions. Or we'll have the questions, but our answers will be based on our ancestral understanding of the world, not the colonial misunderstanding of the world. And I'll yield the mic at that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Badaifo, for your erudite contribution on the matter. We have now heard from everyone with their hands up. There are no more hands up, and we've only got 10 minutes left. Therefore, we shall now go to announcements. Just to round up. To round up, let's just remind ourselves as to what today's discussion was about. It was about continental citizenship. And by citizenship, we mean three key things: legal membership, rights, and responsibilities. And that citizenship is acquired by birth or by naturalization, which means that we are saying that there has to be a legal entity called the African nation, which is currently not in existence, and that we, the organic and indigenous nations of the continent, have citizenship by birth, not by naturalization. We don't require a law to be citizens of this new nation, and that we will have legal membership in addition to citizenship by birth, and then we'll have rights and responsibilities. So those are the issues that we've been discussing, and we've heard from a lot of us on this topic. So, Brother Pigeon, are you ready for the announcement? Tafua, can you just hold on, Brother Pigeon? Are you ready for the announcements? Brother Pigeon? All right, so Tapoa, please chip in whilst we wait to hear from Brother Pigeon. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's just dawned on me that the concept of citizenship, whilst it seeks to empower and give people the sense of belonging, it also excludes. And I'm thinking, in what way could we exclude in an Ubuntu way? Because like brother Ifo was saying, whilst we acknowledge that there could be foreigners amongst us, but they are still with us and for us. So we need to have our concept of citizenship embody that sense. We don't want to make it feel like ICE, because ICE is exactly the opposite of what I think we should be. Although we are talking about who belongs here, who is entitled to be here, we don't want to ice people out in the sense of Trump icing people out based on whatever law, because I think it's the execution that shows the sense of Ubuntu. That's what I wanted to highlight here, that we need to be aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. And I think there have been commentaries online on why ICE was created. And I think some commentators are saying that ICE is a specific instrument being created by Donald Trump in order to create a loyal army, a loyal that is only loyal to him as a person, as opposed to the state of America. And that is what that is about. And if that is what that is about, then some are saying that it sounds like what Julius Caesar did when he marched his army into Rome and installed a military dictatorship, and that Trump wants to run a third term, and he's going to use war as a means to run for a third term without elections, because when there is war, according to the Constitution, you don't have an election. That is what some people are saying. Therefore, in that sense, I think we are confident that we'll only have ICE type of thing if we have a president of the new nation that wants a loyal army, that's loyal to just him or her alone. Hopefully, we will get to that. So thank you for drawing our attention to that. Now, the time is now 6 minutes to 8 Accra time to 9 UK time. Is Brother Pigeon ready for the announcements yet? Brother Pigeon? Okay, Brother Pigeon doesn't appear to be ready. So I will just share with you what is on the slide on the screen. So we have our next week's session is on the 11th, and that is on economics. After which we have development on the 18th of April, and then liberation on the 25th of April. And those are the subtopics. If you are an expert in any of these areas, you would like to present, please get in touch with Brother Pigeon. Concerns have been raised about the length of presentations, and so Sister Amma has suggested we limit it to 20 minutes, and maybe at most 30 minutes. So we're asking those who are going to be preparing presentations to bear in mind that we are saying they should make their main point in 20 to half an hour so that others can, so that we can have a proper discussion like I suppose we've had today. So yeah, so that's the topics for the topic for next week. Secondly, some of our brothers and sisters meet on Mondays, and they are reading and discussing the book called Defeating Dictatorship. Then on Thursday, we will have our CSG class as usual, where we finished chapter 3. We are now moving to chapter 4, which is consensusism. The heading for chapter 4 is the same as the title of the book. So that is for a reason, is decisive. So we are now going to go to chapter 4, but I'll do a short summary looking back for about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll move on. Yeah. So sorry, let me finish the announcement, Sister.
Okay.
Unless you want to add to the announcement, which is okay. Did you want to add to the announcement?
No, I just wanted to know, when am I presenting? I thought I was presenting in April on the 25th. I thought that's what I requested.
Yeah, so those topics were designed before your request came in, so we shall amend as we go along. So that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Then the other announcement is that we have set up a special debating forum where contestation is allowed. We don't allow contestation on our main WhatsApp group, but we have contestation allowed in this forum. And the reason is, as we know, is iron that sharpens iron. So we have to confront people who are of opposite views to us, and we have to contend with them, contest their ideas, and sharpen our own philosophical and ideological sharpness. It's necessary. The only way you can learn to cook is to cook. The only way you can learn to do something is to do it. That's why we said that we want self-government now, not when the white man thinks we are ready. You can only learn to govern yourself if you already govern yourself. That is the point. Thank you. So we've got 3 hands up, I think. So let's hear from them. Let's start with Brother Glenroy. Yeah, Brother Glenroy.
Yes, I just thought while we were waiting for Pigeon, I would just say that tomorrow on Sunday we're discussing books and whether people are still reading them. CSG has a lot of books electronically that people can read. Obviously, there's still books, but ownership of books is the issue. Are people still purchasing them? Are they reading them? Or are they just simply listening to electronic books and getting their information from television or so on and so forth? So tomorrow, 1600 UK time, we'll have that discussion with the director of New Beacon Book in Finsbury Park in the UK, which has been around for at least 2 generations, to my knowledge. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, he has been. I've bought books from him when we've had events. Thank you for that. And yes, and thanks for reminding me. We have a Telegram. We have our own Telegram channel, which is also our library. So if any of you are not yet a member, please contact Brother Pigeon to be a member. We have loads of books there. Sister Amma also helps with that. We also have a research group. We need us to be doing research, and the books are there, and we need to read. Africans, we need to be reading. Marcus Garvey told us long ago that we must read. Always carry a book with you and read. Reading is so crucial. Yeah, Brother General, yes, please add to the announcements. Thanks.
Oh, no, I just wanted to ask if it's possible you can just specify there on the 18th of April on that science and technology and sovereignty. Or I suggest you can put maybe the topic name like something like the space program, for instance, so
Is that what
that we
the 25th, yeah?
on the 18th of April.
The 18th, yeah. Sister Portia,
Yeah.
you wanted 25th, is that correct? Sister Portia? Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. So you wanted me to ask a space, yeah? Brother General?
I said
Yeah.
yes, I want 25th.
Okay.
I want 25th, please.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I've added that. And the idea, I
Yeah, the
think,
space
is the
program.
Afro futuristic whole dimension of things. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Also, yes, sir. Also, what's happening now? We know that NASA just launched a spaceship for humans, so we want to also talk about that. What's happening and what is the reason, etc., etc.
Thank you very much, Sister Portia. What is your topic again? For the 25th?
My topic is a racial capitalist system or systems ?
Okay.
A racial capitalist system or systems ?
Thank you. All right. So that brings us to the end of our session for today. Brother, welcome. Would you like to say a few words in light of the fact that you are chairing our UNA initiative? Those of you who don't know, UNA is the United Nations of Africa. Yeah. Brother, welcome. Okay, Brother, welcome is not ready. So that is it. I'm going to stop the recording. And yeah, and then, but before that, so thank you all for coming. I'm going to stop the recording now.